How's it going, guys? Today I want to talk about the number one difference between the USA and Philippines. Let's go. So there's a lot of differences between the Philippines and the USA in my experience living in both countries, but I want to talk about the number one difference that I see between them that I think makes all the difference. But before we get to that, I think there's a lot of the obvious type of things that people will talk about that's the difference between both countries. You know, in the US, things tend to be a lot more efficient. The roads are just a bit better. You could have so much more variety when it comes to finding anything you need. There's a lot more types of entertainment. There's a lot more culture. There's a lot more everything in the US. In the Philippines, if you live in a bigger city like Manila, definitely you're going to find a lot more variety, but just absolutely nothing could compare to how much diversity there is in the US. I remember even living in Australia years ago for 10 years and just going to a supermarket there, and maybe there would be 10, this or that, but in the US, there would be 100 of this or that when you would go to a store. And so there's just something about the US where you just find far more of everything. So again, there's a lot more to offer when it comes to stuff in a place like the US compared to somewhere like the Philippines. Of course, roads or hospitals or a lot of those other things that definitely contribute to quality of life. There's just no comparison in the US. It's going to have so many more of those types of things at a much higher standard compared to living here in the Philippines. Of course, there's great doctors and nurses and hospitals over here as well, but there are just fewer and further between, and you're not going to normally get something, for example, like a hospital that just has the level of machinery, equipment, just diagnostics, everything here in the Philippines like the US. So I think on the surface level of things, there's so much in the US that just seems like, well, why wouldn't you just live in the US? If these things are better there, or if there's more variety, more selection, more efficiency, more, what are you doing in the Philippines? If you think these things are better in the US or other Western countries. Well, for me, that's where this number one difference between the Philippines and the US comes in, because for me, it kind of trumps all of the stuff. So the number one thing that really stands out to me that the Philippines has compared to the US is respect. For me, I've really been thinking a lot about, what is it that makes me want to live in the Philippines that just doesn't want to go back to the US? There's so much that I really miss about the US. I mean, there's a lot where it's my home, it's my food, it's my culture, everything that I just feel at home with because it's been where I'm from, it's what I'm used to. And for me, as I've been thinking about this for some time, what is it that keeps drawing me to the Philippines? It is just that level of respect that people have for each other. Now listen, some people are the kind of personality where they just feel like, hey, you got to respect me. I'm not that guy, and that's really not what I'm talking about. What I mean when I say that the big difference is respect is just how people communicate with each other over here. When people greet each other, they address each other as sir or ma'am. People just really talk very kindly, very respectfully to each other. Even if they're pure strangers, it's just normal. Whether somebody's taking a phone call from a stranger, getting in a taxi, meeting somebody at a store, wherever it is, people really talk to each other with so much respect. I don't hear people raising their voice over here. Again, that really comes down to respect. I remember one of the first times that I was here in the Philippines, and there was a parent and their kids that I met, and when their kids met me, they grabbed my hand and put it up to their head, and I was like, what is this kid doing? And then the three of them did it one after another, and I found out that in the Philippines, this is kind of a blessing that younger people will give to older people, not that old people, but really just people a bit older than you. And again, it just really comes down to that culture of respect over here. I think when I hear so many news stories or just talking to friends about shootings in the US, or people that are just so quick to physical violence, or so quick to shout, or so quick to shoot people that piss them off driving down the freeway, whatever it may be, why do those things happen in the US? They happen because I think the culture has just lost simple respect for each other. those things don't happen here in the Philippines, or at least they're just incredibly rare here, especially in public, compared to somewhere like the US. Why is that? Again, for me, it just all comes down to respect. So for me, do I love my country? Do I love the US? Of course I do. Are there things that I miss about it? Of course there is. But why do I feel anxiety at the thought of just even going back for a visit? It really just comes down to going back to a place where that respect is just so little compared to what I experience in day-to-day life in the Philippines. For me, sure, there's plenty of things that I could say are better about the US compared to the Philippines, but they're superficial things, they're material things. They're things related to efficiency or whatever it may be. And while those things are important, for me, living in a culture where respect is something that's valued so highly is just something that's hard to leave once you've experienced it. So if you have ever been to the Philippines or visited here or just got a sense of Filipino culture, I would love to see what you guys think about this topic. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, guys. Take care.